Hey there, welcome to Unraveling Adoption. Before we get to this week's episode, I wanted to let you know about an amazing event we're hosting on February 8th, 2025. It's going to be a hybrid event, so you can join us online or in person in Seal Beach, California. It's called Adoption Healing Quest, and it will involve 10 practitioners from the Healing the Adoption Constellation database, presenting interactive workshops about different healing modalities that will add tools to your toolkit to help you deal with adoption trauma. This event is open to anyone impacted by adoption, adopted people, birth first parents, adoptive parents, and allies who are impacted in their lives. I really hope you can join us or help us spread the word. There's a 20% discount link in the show notes, and that discount is good through the end of January. So hop on it, help us spread the word, and I hope to see you there, Adoption Healing Quest, on February 8th. And now, enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode of Unraveling Adoption, an intentional space to delve into adoption's complexities together. I'm Beth Syverson. I'm an adoptive mom of a creative and insightful young adult son, Joey, who has struggled for the last several years with suicidality and addiction. I'm walking beside him while working on my own personal growth and healing. Joey and I are committed to helping anyone impacted by adoption, and we want to help the general public understand adoption's complexities better too. I'm also a certified coach helping seekers who want to move their lives forward. Well, today's guest, Dave Sanchez-Brown, is an adoptee who has also struggled with suicidality and addiction. Joey and I have a goal of destigmatizing addiction and mental illness, and we also love highlighting adoptee voices that we don't typically hear from as often. So the fact that Dave is a gay man makes me want to give him an even louder voice to get his story out there. Dave lives in San Jose in Northern California, and he's worked hard for the last decade or so on his recovery from meth and also on his coming out of the adoption fog. He's found ways to unpack his trauma and build community. His story will inspire you and give you hope for yourself or anyone you know who might be on the struggle bus right now. Welcome to Unraveling Adoption, Dave. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Beth. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, whenever I have an adoptee on, I just always start by giving them an opportunity to share their adoption story. What part of your story would you like us to know?
I'm going to give you little clips of it. So in the summer of 2019, I read Danii Shapiro's Inheritance. And it was about a woman who never felt quite sure where she fit into their family because she was the only blonde-haired, blue-eyed kid out of this whole extended family. So her husband suggested she take a DNA test, and she sends away, gets a kid. And then finally she does it and discovers that she was donor conceived. And so she did not know. And then it follows the story of her developing a relationship with her donor father. Her father had already passed away before she went down this road. In fact, he died in an accident with her mother. The mother survived, but the dad passed away.
Well, that's intense.
So I did that too. I sent away for a couple of different kits, and they would sit on my desk for 6 months, and then I would just throw it away. And then finally, after I read her book, I said, okay, this is it. I'm going to do it. So I sent away for the kit and then did a spit in the vial, got the results back in 6 months. And that actually was kind of a traumatic event, opening up this page displaying all of your blood relatives.
Oh.
And there were hundreds of people.
Whoa.
And I knew my mother's last name. So one side was full of Carols. And honestly, I didn't put everything together because I was so overwhelmed by all this information. I mean, I froze.
Oh, wow.
I didn't really know what to do. Then I started sending off emails to people hoping to find, are you my mother? Are you my father? Because I have two first cousins. Oh. So I wasn't quite sure which was which. One was for my father, one was for my mother.
Okay, so did you end up finding them?
I did. So let me give a little plug out for Search Angels. These are volunteer genealogists who put in their time and love to help people reconnect people. So I was so overwhelmed. I just needed help. So I was in a group called DNA Detectives. And I asked if there was anyone in the group that could help me because I didn't even know where to begin. And then this woman emailed me later in the day, and she did. And within 2 weeks, she was able to put together my paternal and maternal family trees.
Wow.
And
That's
then
incredible.
I was able to go back 8 generations just from that information.
Wow.
Based on public records, based on other family trees.
Yeah.
And, when people get messages from a stranger, I mean, I'm kind of like that too. I'm going like, who is this?
Yeah.
Or why are you messaging me? So finally, one of my first cousins reached out to me. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and she was in Richmond, Virginia. And she said, can you send me some pictures of you at different stages of your life?
Okay.
I did. And then in return, she sent pictures of her uncle, who was my father.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw his picture, I was so overwhelmed. I wanted to cry.
Wow.
But nothing would come out.
Wow.
Because my mother said, you'll never find him. He's a lawyer and he'll make sure he covers his tracks.
Oh, she knew that he was a lawyer.
So I wasn't even sure about contacting him. But I mean, honestly, I never meant to get emotionally involved with any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I guess what I had hoped to accomplish was seeing a picture of my father, seeing a picture of my mother, finding out some rudimentary family information because I was a historical buff, which I did. I found out a lot of information. And then I discovered I had 3 sisters, new half-sisters.
Oh, wow.
And 2 of them are twins.
Wow.
And then there's a third one. And they have particularly one of the sisters struggled with addiction. And then I found out from my cousin, she said, well, it's a huge part of our family story.
Oh, okay. It's genetic propensity for addiction.
I call it genteel addiction because they were well respected. But, at the time in the 50s and 40s, people didn't take care of themselves. I mean, they smoked, they drank.
Oh, yeah. They had cocktails every night when they got home from work.
Yeah. At work.
At work. Yeah, that's right. The martini lunches and all that.
So
that's your genetic history.
Yeah,
wow.
So that's my genetic history. And then I found out my grandfather died in a psychiatric hospital. And
oh, wow.
I guess he died from what they call wet brain or just was so alcoholic that he just lost his mind.
Whoa. Oh, that's serious.
Yeah. So, about taking a DNA test, you have to be prepared to accept anything.
Anything.
You're going to find out things about your birth parents that you wished you hadn't.
Yep.
You'll find out. Let me just say this. I know where my crazy gene comes from. So I never made that connect. Well, I didn't have that information. I knew nothing about where I came from.
Your genetic.
Nothing.
Yeah. And how was your adoptive family? Were they supportive of your mental health struggles along the way?
I actually waited till after my parents died before I did it. My adoptive brother had died.
Oh.
So my sister was, she was all for it.
Oh, I see. Before you did the DNA test.
But she's kind of like, I would like to know. I wanted to know. I was interested in following your story. I mean, we're both in our 60s. So fast forward to my teen years, I don't want to get into when my parents told me adopted because I felt like the rug had been pulled out from underneath me.
How old were you when they told you you were adopted?
8.
8. Ooh, that's late.
So that was rather old, and I'd already bonded with them. So I felt like, whoa, what?
Yeah, that must have been traumatic. Wow.
And I was, I was upset. I got really angry. Yeah. I said that we have to go look for her. And my mother got right in my face and screamed, I'm your mother, you self-centered little boy.
Oh, no, that hurts me so bad. I'm so sorry.
She was definitely not the nurturing type.
Oh, man, that's tough.
Yeah. So, my family said I always rejected them, but they rejected me. And my answer was to withdraw. And I guess my first drug of choice, would be called sleep. Oh. Because I would come home from school. I was a bully target, and I would just go to sleep.
Yeah, sleeping works really well. It just knocks everything out. You don't have to feel or think or anything. You just sleep.
Well, I was literally in so much pain. I just wanted to go to sleep and not wake up.
Yeah. How old were you when you had your first suicide attempt?
Oh, gosh, 17.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, right about that time, I started getting into my dad's alcohol.
Oh.
And I was particularly fond of anything that would bring me down.
Sure. Yeah, the downer.
Opiates and barbiturates that I found through
Okay.
unsavory characters.
Sure.
So, yeah, I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, and that was my first trip to hell, literally.
Yeah.
Those places they're horrible.
Yeah.
The nursing staff they're just burnt out.
Yeah.
But I knew enough not to go crazy, or else I was afraid of a straitjacket or, being dumped in a padded room and then I manipulated my way out of there.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds familiar. My son also had horrible experiences at many different hospitals, and they never helped him, and they were often mean or isolating or
punitive. They were just mean.
Yeah, punitive. Yeah, and the burnout, understandably, probably, of the staff, and just not very many caring people there. So that's really tough. My son also kind of figured out what they wanted to hear so he could get out.
Yes.
He just was super smart like that. So I hear that. That reminds me of my son a lot. Oh, that sounds really rough. But it sounded like for you, the suicidality and the drugs and the alcohol kind of came all at the same time in your teen years.
Actually, I'm thinking back, I think that the sleeping was sort of a passive.
Yeah.
Because I just wanted to be gone and I did not want to wake up.
Yeah, you probably went to sleep and said, maybe I just won't wake up right now.
Right.
Yeah. When we had our talk earlier, you talked about taking a bunch of aspirin at a young age.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about that. And actually, that happened when I was just after they told me I was adopted.
Okay, so right after they told you, because that was at about 8.
Yeah, I said, I'm going to kill myself. My father said, don't act like a girl. And I went upstairs and got into the medicine cabinet, got out the aspirin, and just swallowed a bunch.
Oh, shoot. How did that go? Did you get sick or?
Well, I would think that they would have got me help, like psychiatric help, but no.
No.
I went to the emergency room and, I had to, upchuck it.
Yeah, they pumped your stomach or something. Yeah. And how did your parents react?
More angry than, dumbfounded why I would do something like that.
Oh, they didn't say, oh, God, you must be hurting. You just tried to kill yourself. What can we do to help you?
Well,
oh, no.
My father was a military guy. He was a commander in the Navy.
Oh, no kidding.
So we ate our meals squarely, which means you go down, you go up, you go in, you go out, and then you go down.
Whoa, with the fork. Whoa.
Yeah.
Lots of rigor and structure. Wow.
So gave me a lecture about this isn't what boys do. You need to grow up. You need to stop being dramatic. You need to stop. Oh, I know. You'll like this. Attention seeking.
Oh, you're just trying to get attention. Oh.
No.
Yeah, Joey's heard that too.
No, I don't really see any point in living at 8 years old because I couldn't have my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a huge disconnect there, and you were feeling it, and you were told to not have any feelings. Don't be dramatic. You're just seeking attention. That is like the worst thing to tell somebody in that kind of struggle. I'm kind of shocked that you survived that childhood. That sounds really, really horrible. And what do you think helped you survive? Like, what got you through? Maybe the drugs.
Well, they kept us active. We were in Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts.
Okay.
And very regimented, dance classes, tennis club. Okay. So everything was regimented. Everything was.
You were busy.
And then on weekends, we had to help my father do work around the house because he was an engineer, and so he was kind of a do-it-yourself guy.
Okay, yeah.
There was really never really any downtime.
Okay.
Like everything was go. This is scheduled. No, you can't quit. You have to keep going. Uh-huh. And some of it I liked. There were some other kids that I really, bonded with. And they helped me survive, actually. Okay. I mean, I didn't go into detail about what I was doing or how I hated myself. But it seemed like there were other misfits, like I was.
You found them.
Like it was like F Troop, that old TV sitcom of like all these mismatched.
Yeah. Yep. They always find each other, don't they?
They sure do. And it was good because I felt secure.
That's great. That's great to find those groups.
Felt like I had other kids that liked me and I liked them. So anyway, I left home towards the end of the 70s and moved to San Francisco. And there were a number of reasons. I had decided to come out,
Yeah.
when I was, 20, 19 or 20. And
Okay.
my parents were livid.
I bet.
Well, my mother said, "You're just going to live a very lonely life. Good luck."
Oh.
My dad wouldn't even acknowledge it. And then I went there and, was able to be myself. I was able to embrace the quirkiness, the eccentricity, the arty side of the city. And those were my friends and those were my chosen family.
Yeah, that was the place to be. I'm thinking, did you run into Harvey Milk? I mean, like, I don't know how old he was.
Oh, yeah. I saw him on a platform a couple of times. And, I have to tell you, people absolutely dismissed him. Like they thought he was a crackpot. And I think he ran for office a couple of times and lost, but he finally won.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was about him, like what I call the A-gays, the ones that are very secure and have a lot of money. And they didn't like him because they thought he was tacky or too out there. That's it.
Too rough.
Too out there.
Oh,
and they didn't want to be associated with that. Like, oh no, people are going to think we're like that. Like that. Nobody wants to be like that.
Yeah. Now, in the gay community, I bet, I notice this now still, but I bet then in the 70s, 80s, that drugs and alcohol were just rampant in the gay community. Yeah. I bet it would be hard to be sober there. Maybe still, I don't know.
Well, back then we called it crystal. And
crystal meth.
Well, crystal meth. Although I didn't really get enveloped with it at that time because I finished college and at the University of San Francisco, and I got a job at the University of California in San Francisco. So I had a pretty demanding job where I couldn't be drugged out.
So you might have partied, but
and there was nobody to help me if I couldn't pay the rent or pay my bills. I couldn't go to my parents, and for practical reasons. And then I met somebody in San Francisco when I was 28, and we moved to LA, and it was a new life. And I honestly didn't even think about suicide or drugs during that time. I felt like my life was so full, and I made some really great friends, and I felt like,
nice.
Being in LA in your 20s, and it was fun. It was free.
Yeah.
I didn't have any reason to be, and I forgot about all those past traumas, all those, and then my partner died suddenly from AIDS.
From AIDS, yeah, so many. So sorry.
That's what set me. He died in 1992. And then that set me off.
Yeah, I bet.
On a tailspin that lasted about 10 years.
Ooh. Yeah, I bet that was a really rough time for the gay community.
Well, honestly, felt like, what do I have to lose? Because there's no cure. I'll be dead in a couple of years. And you know what? I mean, nobody is more surprised than I am that I'm still alive. Because I literally did everything after finding that out, diagnosed, and I was like, okay, the party's on.
I'm dying anyway. Yeah. Might as well just party.
And most of my friends were in that apocalypse mood. Like, you can do whatever you want. I went on. Actually, I had some of the infections that are associated with that, so I went on disability.
Okay.
That lasted about 6 years because during that time the drugs came out, and so I had to clean up. But the whole time, I mean, yes, I felt secure with some of these groups, and I also felt like there was a huge chunk of me missing. And when my friends would talk about their families and their parents, I would feel left out.
I bet.
I mean, and so what I started doing is just creating a fictitious family.
Oh, okay. You just made one up, and that made it easier at parties to talk about.
And everything was super great, and they were all in San Diego, and we're really close, but it was not the truth. And the home that I grew up in was about as middle-class Southern California as you could get. I mean, 2 parents, mom and a dad, and, we went to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
And they were Republicans. Well, back when they were more like Democrats.
Yeah. Now it's a lot different.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so you created your own community and your own fictitious family.
I had to create my own family, just like I had to create my own parents, my own
Yeah.
birth parents in my little fantasy kingdom.
You had to do a lot of extra work that most people don't have to do.
But yeah, in my mind, I was really with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to project this artificial life to people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was so unhappy that I thought, well, I'll just tell this story enough times and people might believe it.
Yeah, maybe you'd believe it eventually.
Well, I did. And I forgot about their adoption for a while. I hadn't really thought about my adoption.
I was going to ask if in the gay community, were there any other adoptees? Did you talk about adoption at all?
Well, that's interesting you say that. Well, I have 3 adoptive friends. We were all struggling with drugs and addiction.
Oh, interesting.
And drugs and alcohol.
And did you talk about adoption and go, God, this...
I don't think
really
we made the connection at the time.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, we all thought it was interesting that we were adopted, but we never thought like, oh, maybe there's some sort of connection.
Yeah, you didn't draw the line.
Because when you do that shit, you're looking to feel connected to people because it is the only way that you can, and it's all artificial, but in my head, I convinced myself that it was real.
Yeah.
And then, I started doing a little bit of meth around 2013.
Okay.
Because I moved in with somebody who was a now and again addict.
Okay.
Like he would do now and again. And so I would, do a little, because I thought, well, what's the harm? I can just do a little. And then the little became a lot. And, and then I found other avenues besides sniffing it to do it. Mm-hmm. And still I had a job.
Wow. You were able to hold a job the whole time. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, they talk about functional addicts or alcoholics, but they're not really all there. I mean, they can give off the impression that they're in control, but however, that was the first, probably around 2014, 2015. I was in my late 50s. And I just felt like I was invisible again, just like I was, in high school, not getting invited to parties.
Yep.
And so I thought, well, maybe that's a solution to the problem. And
to just use
and what that led to was another hospitalization.
Yeah, that's destabilizing for sure. What prompted you to get into recovery from meth?
Well, I don't go to meetings. Most of my close friends are in recovery or still go to meetings. Mm-hmm. So I retired in 2016. I was 60. Mm-hmm. And I had an opportunity to move to New York and live there for a year in Harlem. And I thought, well, that sounds like an adventure. So I did that. And I think that finally forced me to let go of all that stuff.
Like a change of venue, like you just changed everything.
Yeah, because here I was creating this whole new world and I wasn't going to muck it up. Mm-hmm. And it's just so weird. It was like literally, like almost overnight, I just stopped everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what supports have you found helpful for your adoption piece of it? Have you found any healing in that area yet?
Yeah, I have several friends who are in the program who are adoptees, so we're connected. But then, I want to tie in the also like 3 years later after I moved back to California and I decided to do the DNA test. And the reason why I didn't do it before, there wasn't DNA testing prior to 2012, but I was too much of a mess.
Okay. It was not on your priority list.
I had mental health issues. What am I going to do? Show up on their doorstep? Hi.
Yeah.
I'm a big mess.
Yeah. So you got yourself in a healthier spot and then started looking at it. Yeah.
Well, I was still in the fog.
Oh, okay.
So that was hell. I mean, I was still in a fog. I was still supporting adoption. Adoption is great. And then I would meet my family and go like, ugh. Well, I feel like I dodged a bullet, actually. But I had no idea about the corruption, the coercion, the shaming people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one thing I do remember from my mother. She said your mother was immoral and promiscuous, and she paid the penalty.
Oh, this is your adoptive mom that was saying that?
Yeah.
Oof,
So,
that's terrible.
it was sex. People would get shamed. Women. It's like
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know how men are never shamed. It's always the women. It's always their fault. So,
Yep. I get that too.
yeah.
Yeah. So your adoptive parents sound like they were not very well attuned, and they weren't very far along in their own personal growth. It sounds like it was a really damaging childhood.
Well, and this is what I also want to tie in intergenerational trauma.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because in 2019, and when I found these families and I found out, secrets and skeletons and the shit that just went down through the generations.
Yeah.
And part of my ancestry involves, people escaping the Irish famine and coming to the U.S. So
Yeah.
that's part of my Irish heritage.
Yeah.
Which I've always had food issues.
Oh, yeah, that's understandable.
That is another drug choice. I like my M&M.
Sure. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people trade, alcohol or drugs for food, or they constantly have food along the way, either way. But yeah, food is a huge addiction for many, many, many people, myself included. So yeah, it's really tough.
So gradually I came out of the fog, and it was, literally came kicking and screaming out.
Yeah.
And I did this after I had met my birth families.
Okay. And I noticed your moniker online is the Rebellious Adoptee.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, that was my main, what I was called by my parents, willful and rebellious.
Oh,
and
they called you that. Oh.
Challenging authority figures and not rolling over sometimes and playing dead.
Yeah. So now you're taking that on, you're flipping the script.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to regain agency over your life and rebel.
Definitely.
Just rebel against these sort of expectations on adoptees that we're going to be grateful and thankful. And look, I'm not disparaging growing up in a comfortable home and living a relatively comfortable life. But the thing is that it's not the same. I mean, sure, I found out that I probably would not have wanted to have been raised in that family, but I don't know. It's
different. It's not necessarily better, right?
Conjecture or, fantasy. I have no idea whether it would have been bad or maybe it would have been different. Definitely different.
Yeah.
I was born in Southern California. Well, I was born in Virginia, but came to California when I was 3. And so I'm thoroughly Southern California, even though I live in the Bay Area. And that's my mentality. And they're all in the capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, yes. Wow.
And they still have views that I don't understand.
Oh, okay.
I will say that your environment plays a huge role in how you turn out. And I guess,
for sure,
maybe I survived those years because I knew how to function in a polite society.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I was raised. So I knew what to say. I knew how to manipulate people.
Yeah, you knew how to work in the society.
I knew how to create this image where people would go, oh, he's one of the good guys. I didn't want to stand out when I was growing up because, I already had glasses and I was overweight. I had one of those Huffy bikes and we had to shop in the Husky department at Sears.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that must have been a tough road for you, I bet.
But anyway, looking back in retrospect, of course, I wish I'd had this hindsight all those many years ago. I wish I had maybe made that connection to the drug use, to trying to escape the pain of feeling lonely and alienated for myself and disconnected. And it's not a moral issue. It's just not. When people dismiss it as you're just immoral or you lack the discipline, willpower, all those things people say.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I've heard all those things.
And back to attention seeking.
Yes. You're just looking for attention. Yes.
Once again, you're the center of attention.
Maybe people can look at someone that's hurting like you were and go, whoa, they're really hurting. They need some support. What can we do to help them? Instead of more stigmatizing. And
Well, I think that we live in a society that has become gradually unempathetic. For
Yes.
instance, people, trash homeless people. Well, okay, so where is it that you think that they could work?
Yeah.
Or where is that you think that they could get an apartment?
Yeah.
What if they don't have any skills?
Yeah. How would that really play out?
So do we just round them up and put them in a camp somewhere?
Yeah. I think some people probably would like to do that.
Well, I've heard that out of people's mouths.
Yeah, that's terrible. What advice do you have for an adoptive parent? Maybe they have a little kid, 8-year-old, maybe they're struggling, maybe they're gay, or they might be gay, or maybe gender nonconforming or something like that.
I would, watch out for the warning signs like gradual withdrawal, tendency to maybe sleep too much, or getting shamed for trying to escape, trying to sleep it away. But there's a deeper cause of that.
Yeah. Adding shame doesn't usually help anything, right?
It doesn't.
Adding shame onto top of everything.
Yeah. I mean, my parents use shame as a weapon.
Yeah.
I see other adoptees getting into shaming. I mean, it's just, I wish there was a better way at messaging. And then also realize that when your teen gets into their teens, that's a crazy time anyway for any kid.
Yep.
And I think that's when the sort of genetic factors start sinking in. They don't look like their parents. Their friends' parents look like them, but they don't have that. And so they're going to feel, well, I felt just sort of, I don't know where I fit in. And no matter what I do, it's not going to, I'm trying to fit myself into this giant puzzle that won't, I'm the wrong size or the wrong piece. And also, teen, I mean, I remember as a teen, it wasn't like, you suddenly start to want independence. You don't want to spend every single second with your family. But sometimes parents take that as rejection.
Yes, they take it personally. Yeah. There's so much adoptive parents can do, hopefully before they even adopt. But as their kids are young, kind of try to get a hold of your own issues so you don't add them to your kids.
Well, with my adoptive parents, I was supposed to fill a hole from infertility grief.
Yes, that's so common.
And then I didn't really pan out like they had hoped.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that adoptive parents have to realize, that as the kid gets older, they're going to start to realize that they are really different. I mean, it's easier to hide that when you're a kid as far as you don't look like your parents.
Yeah.
Well, as kids get older, they become more aware, more consciously aware that they're not like their parents. And, well, for instance, my parents, when I started to withdraw, then they just started to withdraw their emotional support or their emotional empathy.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was made to feel like I should be at fault.
Oh, I'm really sorry that you didn't have the support you needed. It sounds like you really have built your own life. You found your own support outside of your family that many, many gay people do. I get that. And if people wanted to get a hold of you and engage with you, what would be the best way for them to find you?
I do have a Facebook page, the Rebellious Adoptee.
The Rebellious Adoptee. Okay.
So found on Instagram with the same account name.
Okay. Facebook and Instagram, the Rebellious Adoptee.
Yeah.
I'll make sure and put those 2 links so everyone look below or to the side of wherever you pressed play. And there's a bunch of notes and resources for you. We'll make sure you get a hold of Dave. Well, thank you, Dave, for being on and sharing your story, your really remarkable recovery.
Can I add a few things?
Sure.
I think probably the most healing thing for me now has been the support of other adoptees. I have a couple of adoptee brothers that I can call. And that has made all the difference in the world, because when I'm having a trauma meltdown or flipping out over something minor, I can get a hold of these people and we can talk. And that has been more therapeutic than all the money I spent on therapy and self-help. And that's where the real healing came in.
Yes. Finding people that have been through a similar situation as you.
You're not
finding
alone.
That peer support. Yeah, you're not alone. That's so, so, so important. I'm so glad you found that. Any other last words?
It's hard to know as far as imparting advice to people who are still struggling. I was just thinking, when people tried to pass advice on to me, I would just go, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of, sometimes you're so depressed and so stuck that you don't know how to reach out to help, and you don't know.
Yeah.
But, there are thriving adopted communities. There are many groups. If you don't like one, there's another. It's not, and don't take everything to heart that people say on social media.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
Yeah, find the people that resonate with you. There are a lot of groups, and our community calendar, which I've linked below in the show notes, will have maybe some resources you hadn't heard of before. But just Google find support online. There's a ton of support, and even in a lot of communities. So find what you need. Each person has to find what works for them. Well, you're a great example of that, Dave. Thank you very, very much for being on with us.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. So listeners, connect with Dave on social media as the Rebellious Adoptee, and find Unraveling Adoption at unravelingadoption.com. Check out our tab that's called Events if you want to find out about upcoming events we're doing. And don't forget, there's a code in the show notes for 20% off our February 8th event, Adoption Healing Quest. We are always trying to provide effective and innovative events and opportunities for people to find healing, find tools, and find connection. So please join us in that quest and help us spread the word. So thank you all for listening to this episode. Please share it with anyone you know who might be struggling with addiction or suicidality, or might be an adoptive parent with somebody who's struggling. Let's all learn from Dave's experience and his wisdom that he's shared with us. And thank you all for listening. Dave and I want you all to stay safe.